Senator from Washington.
Mr. President, I rise to thank Chairman Murkowski for her leadership on the energy bill. She and I have been working on this, I think, almost a year now. And today we're at a point where we think that we will see the final product of this legislation in the next 24 hours move out of the Senate and over to the House of Representatives. So it is a good day, and we're very thankful that all the hard work that she and her team and our side on the minority have put together will be successful in actually getting to the president's desk. I want to acknowledge that our colleagues in the Senate, we have addressed something like 40 different priority pieces of legislation. We have added, I think the chairman just said, something like 60 different amendments during the floor process. We've had important compromises on clean energy technology, energy efficiency, infrastructure, and truly bipartisan support. So we need to pass this bill. That's why we've been so persistent. It's been since 2007 that we've passed an energy bill, and that was led by Senators Jeff Bingaman and Senator Pete Domenici, and laid down a lot of fundamental things in the renewable energy markets and clean energy investments. But the landscape has changed greatly since 2007. And since then, because of those efforts, the U.S. has more wind power, and it's more than tripled than what we had. Solar photovoltaic installations are up nearly 15 times. The number of LED lights has grown more than 90%. So from 2007 to 2014, our national energy use also fell 2.4%, while our GDP grew 8%. So this represents a very significant point in energy productivity. That is, we have continued to produce cleaner sources of energy, helped diversify our own energy portfolio, and yet our economy and GDP still grew. So it's important because these policies that are in this bill are continuing to move forward on energy efficiency, clean energy, renewables, and new technology. So I want to thank everybody who's been cooperative in this process. Clearly, we could have had a my way or the highway that was taken on the Shaheen-Portman legislation. I know my colleague is just leaving the floor here, but he and Senator Shaheen played a large role in past discussions, but the chairwoman didn't take that approach. She said, let's all work together. Let's, in a spirit of compromise, pass legislation that our colleagues want to see. And of course, we took the quadrennial review, the Energy Secretary's own assessment of what our nations needed to do at a crossroads to make major investments in 21st century energy and modernizing our energy portfolio. Energy is the lifeblood of our economy. If we put good energy policy in place, businesses and consumers get more affordable, cleaner, and more renewable energy. And this bill takes important steps on research and development of clean energy technologies, and those that are already in the marketplace and some that are new, like getting a new foothold in marine, hydrokinetic, and geothermal. And I want to thank our colleague, Senator Wyden, for his leadership on this. The bill also takes important steps in advanced grid technology to help us with new integration of our renewable resources. It authorizes $2 billion to make sure that we are continuing the development of a microgrid. I know the chairman of the committee, this is something very important to Alaska, as they have a huge territory and lots to cover. Making sure that microgrid development gets the technical support and assistance is critical. And the bill includes an incentive to accelerate the R&D of energy storage, a technology that many witnesses before our committee have labeled as, quote, the game changer. And I believe that it is the game changer. As a hydro state that gets over 70% or nearly 70% of our electricity from cheap hydro, and we have a lot of renewable energy, making sure that we can store some of that energy is a game changer for the electricity grid. And just as importantly, this bill makes a major investment in cybersecurity. We're talking about the technologies that are key to making sure that we protect our grid, make it more resilient, basically make it more robust, so that we continue to build off on it and face less risk in the future. We have many opportunities in this energy bill to continue to promote the advanced fuels and energy information that are going to allow us to continue to diversify. We also want to make sure that we are understanding how the United States maintains its competitiveness in a clean energy economy. The global smart grid economy, for example, is expected to grow by $400 billion in the next 5 years. Well, it's pretty basic. Anytime you can save on the supply that you already have, it's a wise investment. So many people want to invest in making their electricity, the use of their current energy supply, smarter. I like the smart building provisions of this bill. That is, smart buildings that will end up using sensors to better direct and maintain the energy flow in buildings. Why is this so important? Well, it's important because about 40% of our energy use comes from buildings today. And the Department of Energy believes that we could reduce the cost of energy in our buildings by something like 20 to 30%. I don't think that there's a person here in the Senate today that hasn't walked into a room and felt like the thermostat just wasn't right. Whatever it said, the room seemed to just be the opposite. That's why we want buildings to have smarter technology, more sophisticated, so that we can save energy and help our businesses be more competitive. Energy efficiency in the Chinese market is expected to be more than $1.5 trillion by 2035. So the United States, continuing its leadership on this, will help us grow jobs and grow industries here in the United States. Past energy efficiency and building standards also have lowered costs. A 20% cost in energy use in U.S. buildings would save $80 billion each year on energy bills. That's something to give any U.S. manufacturer a competitive advantage. So investing in smart buildings just makes sense. And so I'm so pleased that while we're investing in this, we're also helping our manufacturers. We just had a hearing from the manufacturing industry in the Energy Committee who told us that they were literally bringing jobs from overseas home to the United States of America because we continued to invest in the right advanced manufacturing technology for them to continue to be competitive. I speak now of just what's happening with aerospace manufacturing and composite lightweight materials, that the research we did allowed us to continue to be proficient in that area and have more jobs brought back to the United States. So this bill invests in smart manufacturing. It would enhance fuel efficiencies, and I want to thank Senators Stabenow, Peters, and Alexander for their work on that provision. Heavy-duty trucks move 70% of our freight, and they use about 20% of the fuel consumed in the United States, so this sector could continue to use the advances in these technologies to continue their competitiveness. This legislation also focuses on the workforce training issues, and we know that we need more jobs as the energy profile continues to change. The good news is these are high-paying jobs. In my state, the average salary for a utility worker is 57% higher than the average salary of all other industries in the state. So our bill establishes a competitive workforce grant, a job training program through community colleges, and helps with registered apprentice programs so that we can get the workforce of tomorrow that the Secretary of Energy says that we need. His report says we need 1.5 million new workers in the energy markets. So let's go about making sure that we get that. Lastly, I want to mention the Land and Water Conservation Fund, a program that was actually authored by Senator Scoop Jackson from Washington and represents one of the longest pieces of legislation for environmental conservation. The Land and Water Conservation Fund is fully functional and effective, but we did have a lapse last fall. This bill would make sure that that never happens again by making it permanent. I want to thank the chairman for her leadership because she helped us craft a compromise on making the Land and Water Conservation Fund permanent, to get the right focus on how the program works and to continue to make sure that we are making investments in outdoor recreation. This Land and Water Conservation Fund helps support over 200,000 jobs in the state of Washington and nearly a $20 billion economy. So when we talk about these various amendments we're going to be talking about today, I want to make sure that members understand that a lot of good work in the committee went into the Land and Water Conservation Fund. We'll also be voting on a lot of public lands amendments later. I wanted to bring up one, the Yakima Basin Bill, which was a bipartisan legislation. It's basically a consortium of holistic approach to dealing with water management, and I hope it becomes a model for the rest of the country. And I also want to thank Secretary Moniz and his staff for all the work that was done in the committee and Secretary Jewell on both the lands package and other energy provisions. I know that the chairwoman probably discussed the issue of natural gas exports, and Secretary Moniz provided us language for how the agency is working that we put into the bill. So I want to again thank my two colleagues that are here on the floor, Senator Shaheen and Senator Portman, but certainly Senator Shaheen has been dogged in her enthusiastic support for not just energy efficiency policy, working with Senator Portman, but when she left the committee, I don't think she really left the committee. She just pretended that she was somehow still connected to our efforts. And I want to thank her for that and Senator Portman. But I think that we have taken the good work of these individuals and probably had almost 30 different energy efficiency proposals in this base legislation bill that we have incorporated and now are able to move forward on. So I also want to thank my colleague, Senator Heinrich, who has several provisions in this bill and several that will be voted on shortly in the lands package. These individuals, along with those that I just mentioned, members of the committee, have provided such great leadership for us in putting this final bill before the members of the Senate. I hope our colleagues will give it enthusiastic support. It represents a lot of discussion, not the perfect bill that the chairwoman would have written or not the exact bill I would have written, but a compromise on the modernization of energy that this country desperately needs. The steps we need to take to keep moving forward on a safer, more secure, cleaner energy source and a workforce to go with delivering it. So with that, Madam Chair, I will yield the floor.